Ashley, can you hear me? Da.
Yes, Neil, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
It's Dane. I would say if I had a radar gun. Here, okay, thank you. All right, I want to welcome everybody to the July Economic Development Meeting. Looks like we have a quorum, so I'll call a meeting to order. See if I can find the agenda. Would you call the roll, please, Mr.
All right, certainly.
Our space.
Yeah. Mr. Diffenbach,
Here.
Mr. Tatum,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Llewellyn, Ms. Bullock, Ms. Scott,
Here.
Mr. Vaughn.
Here.
So we have a quorum with Mr. Llewellyn and Ms. Bullock.
Here comes Robert now. Right.
We're doing good.
Put him in the here, Conway. Right, so we stand for the, in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberties and justice for all. Well, that's
Well, again, we thank you that we can come together as a committee and do the work of your lovely county, Amelia County. Lord bless us as we go and make the proper decisions for whatever we need for the citizens and the good works that you would have us do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Sorry, I have a few minutes late.
All right.
All right.
Next agenda item is the communication from citizens, and since I don't see any, I guess we won't have any. And organizational meeting. This is when our bylaw says we need to elect a chairman and a vice chair. I'll turn it over to Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, sir. All right, so I'll open the floor for nominations for chairman.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Smith.
Mr. Diffenbach has nominated Robert Smith for another term as president.
I move we close the nominations.
All right, and
Second.
okay. So we've got a motion to close the nomination. Is there any discussion? Not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so now we have, that motion passed, and now we have nomination on the floor for Mr. Smith, and I guess we should vote on that. But all those in favor of Mr. Diffenbach's motion for Mr. Smith to have another term, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Smith. You have another year unanimously.
I appreciate your confidence. Next item of business is we need a vice chair. So I'll open the floor for nominations.
Where's that man? Okay.
For nomination for vice chair.
Move that we, I nominate Mr. Diffenbach.
Nominating Mr. Diefenbach. Yep.
I do.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Any other nomination?
Oh, you need another nomination?
Yep.
What's the law?
Mr. Vaughn?
Yeah.
Okay. Will you accept the nomination?
Accept.
Okay. Can we, have a motion to close the,
I'll make the motion.
close the nominations? All in favor? Oh, I need a second.
A second.
Okay, Marty. All in favor of closing the nominations, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Nominations are closed. Now we have a motion on the floor in a second for Mr. Vaughn to be the vice chair. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right. Congratulations, Winston, for being the vice chair. We also need to, have a motion to have the chair and vice chair act as the executive committee. 9 times out of 10, all that entails is some kind of paperwork that comes up during the month between the meetings that needs to be taken care of. So I would move that the chair and the vice chair serve as the executive committee. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Oh, and any more discussion about that? All in favor of the executive committee consisting of the chair and the vice chair? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Like sign? Okay. All right, moving on to the approval of June 13th, 2023 minutes. Had a chance to look at those. There's one correction I'd like to make, or 2 corrections actually. On the second page where it says posted, no, post closed session discussion, that should be post closed session discussion. And we talked about the roundtable discussion from the CRC and the regional development. It was held last month. So it's not, you have to take the ED off the post and it'll be okay. And on the last page, I think Mr. Diffenbach needs to come off of there and put my name there for running the meeting. Any other additions or corrections? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the June 13th minutes with corrections.
I'll move to accept.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right, moving on to the acceptance of the treasurer's reports. Give you a second to look over those. Let's see, we still have $428,382.55 in our account. Any corrections or additions to the finance report? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the finance report.
Move to accept financial
Thank you,
report.
Mr. Right, second.
Second.
All in any more discussion about the treasurer's reports? All in favor of accepting the treasurer's report? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The reports are accepted. Okay, under old and new business, Richardson Road project update. You're gonna take that, Mr.
Aye. I see Neil sitting there smiling.
Yeah, and, thank you all for allowing me to participate in the meeting virtually today. I really appreciate
No problem.
there. Uh, Now that the Board of Supervisors has passed the rezoning of the property, which is a tremendous milestone, there are a number of activities that, the EDA should pursue to move forward with the development of the property as well as the marketing of the property. So, um, and I see Jeff Gore is also on the meeting here virtually as well. And one of the things that you have discussed is at previous meetings is the adoption of some deed restrictions which would govern the development of the property, uh, going forward. And you also had at your last meeting had made a revision to the conceptual plan to include a 200-foot buffer along the northern boundary of the property, and that could be included as a covenant or deed restriction as well as part of the overall deed restriction. So that's one of the items. In preparation for the marketing of the property, it would be good if we could demolish some of the existing structures on the property and make that entrance a little bit there. Along with that would be the possible erection of a for sale sign indicating that the property is now available for, sale to private developers there. I've included in your packet a sort of a mock-up of a potential sign. Brady indicates that the zoning ordinance limits the size of the sign to 32 square feet or 4x8 sign. I also provided a little mock-up or illustration of what the sign might look like when it's there, and that's the Cheney Enterprises sign. That was done by Royal Signs, which is a small sign manufacturer there in the county, which I got a price for the sign from him, roughly at about $1,500 there. I need to circle back with him to finalize that if he wished to go forward with a sign there. Along with the sales price, along with the putting the property on the market for sale would be determining of a price that you wish to ask for the property. And lastly, but not least, would be looking forward to some financing for the current acquisition later on down the road, and or applying for grants for further development of the property there. I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, in which order you'd like to undertake the discussion, but I'd be glad to elaborate there, or Taylor or Jeff could take the lead on some of that as well. So,
Well, that's my remembrance of some of the discussions we've had since the General Assembly couldn't come up with a budget. And looks like the governor's going to have to call a special session sometime this summer. It looks like we're not going to have any, and the BEDP money is contingent on the budget. Looks like we're not going to be able to, that's not going to be available until September earliest.
that is correct. That would be the earliest at this point in time. I mean, more likely that it wouldn't be available until either late this year or sometime early part of next year.
Yeah. And it's not beyond the realm of possibility that you just say, well, since it's so late, we'll just wait till next year to do the whole thing. So I don't think we can hang our hat on that. We also talked about some Go Virginia funds, but that would That's not instantaneous either. That would,
The Go Virginia is another possible funding source for the development of property. Um, the Go Virginia supports regional projects. In that context, the project applicant could be the county, but it would have to have other neighboring localities as partners to the application. Another option for that funding is to request that the Heartland Authority, which developed the Regional Industrial Park, Heartland Regional Industrial Park at Keysville a number of years ago, to be the applicant. The concept there would be that the development of the funding of the development of the Richardson Road property would be a carry-on to the development or furtherance of the development of regional, or I should say, local industrial parks throughout the region. So there, and I think Taylor serves on the authority board, and he would be sort of the contact there.
okay,
We made some initial contacts with the Go Virginia staff and CRC staff, and we're pursuing a sort of a face-to-face meeting with them to further explore, the receptivity of the staff to a project and what would all be necessary in applying for that. Given, the regional aspects of it, I would expect that it would take a few months to work through the details of the application and have it filed for Go Virginia funding.
okay.
Taylor, would you like to elaborate?
I think he did a pretty good job of the overview of it. The authority was created to build industrial parks, business parks in this region. It was cheerfully accepted by all of the communities to have the first one down in Keysville because they had things that were necessary. But it was certainly the intent of the group that put it together that that was not going to be the only spot. We weren't combining our efforts to have some success down on one end of it. It was thought that it would be shifted around. So I think if, unless that attitude is changed, we should have a willing and a really good willing partner to step up here and
Okay.
apply with us.
Set up a meeting, try to set up a meeting.
I was reading the CRC has asked for the meeting yesterday.
Okay,
And I just looked at my phone to see if there'd been a reply yet. As Neil said, they would rather, and I think it's proper, they would rather have a face-to-face meeting as opposed to doing it on Zoom or with a telephone call to really make sure we thoroughly understand what's requested and get all of our questions answered.
okay. Well, there's no objection. How about we discuss the deed restrictions so Mr. Gore can
Okay?
free him up? Mr. Gore, you want to kick us off here?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So I think you're all familiar with the concept and you probably discussed it before. Obviously, you made the decision to approve the 200-foot buffer, which is, as Mr. Barber said, that can be put in the restrictions. I think I provided Taylor a couple examples a while back, and I think maybe you all may have already looked at them. Taylor had mentioned that you thought some sentiment was that the Floyd County deed restrictions were a good model. So I don't need to belabor this other than just the big overview is you can do a lot with covenants and restrictions. From the actual development, site development, and subdivision and site plan, sort of control over that process. If you have, things that you want done a certain way beyond what the county ordinances already require. So the whole development of the site and subdivision of parcels, that's you can have some say in that on how that's done. Site plans could come back to you all for approval. Obviously, things like screening and buffers and vegetation can be put in there. You can put requirements on things like lighting and storage of materials, indoor and outdoor, and where materials are stored, and fencing, and you can get pretty detailed if you want. And then you can put in provisions such as permitted or prohibited uses. So you probably don't want residential in there, even if it could be done under current zoning potentially. So looking at the Floyd County restrictions, that's one thing that they prohibit is residential. They have a section of permitted uses for the property, and if it's not on that list, it would have to, I think, be specifically approved by the EDA. Then there's provisions you can put in there dealing with the eventual repurchase of a parcel. For instance, you could have a first right of refusal, so that say you've sold a parcel and years down the road the original the buyer is looking to sell it. They would have to come to you first before they could sell it to someone else. And it wouldn't lock in necessarily a certain price, but it would give you the option to purchase it, so it's not sold out from under you. If you don't want it to be, if you want to regain control, they would run with the land. You could put a time period on it. The Floyd County ones are limited to 50 years. You don't have to do that. They do run with the land. So any subsequent purchaser, so, two purchasers down the road of a parcel would still be subject to the conditions. Then there's provisions on how they could be amended. If, the EDA would have to amend them if you're going to change them, or release them if you're going to get rid of them before the time frame. So there's really a lot you can do from the uses to the development of the property to the eventual sale or repurchase of it down the road. It's really you can do a lot with these, and it gives you some helps shape the sort of the future of the property with your vision of how you'd like to see it develop. Then it gives potential developers some certainty, and sort of they know what you're looking for, and so it sort of could be a self-selecting process with prospects when you provide that information. If they've got something in mind that you don't have to waste time with talking with them if they want to put something that's clearly not what you all envision as set out in the covenants. But then you would have the flexibility to amend them down the road if you wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So that's just the overview of covenants and restrictions. They're pretty common in Virginia on an EDA or IDA owned industrial parks or other property. So it's there's lots of models to go from, but I can put something together and we can talk about it. But if you have any specific questions or things that you want to know if you can do it or not, or if you want to talk about specific things you would want to put in there, I'm happy to talk with you now about that, or
Okay.
whatever it is, whatever the will of the board is.
All right, I have a couple of questions. One is the two things we've talked about is the right of first refusal and the 200-foot buffer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, I think you suggested the right of first refusal. Do you have any other guidance on that? Any other that would be a good idea to put in?
I mean, along the lines of the right of first refusal, I have seen restrictions in other counties or covenants where they actually have a repurchase right. So not just a right of first refusal, but in other words, if a parcel is purchased for development, you sell a parcel for development, the covenants would provide a specific period of time within which that development must, be initiated or substantially completed. You could set different benchmarks, and it could be, 18 months, it could be 3 years, but it's the kind of provision that would go in a development agreement. If you're doing a standalone project and, you want to have benchmarks to be met, one of those benchmarks typically would be, development of the site, along with, potentially job creation. You wouldn't put job creation in a deed instrument, but I have seen, in addition to a right of first refusal, I've seen an actual repurchase right, if the certain development benchmarks aren't met within a certain time period. And the reason for that is you want to produce economic activity here, right? That's your goal. You don't want to sell a property and then have it lie fallow for 20 years.
That's right.
So that's the reason behind a provision, that would, if development doesn't commence or isn't completed substantially within so many months, then the EDA would have the right, not the obligation, but the right to repurchase the property. And on a provision like that, I think it would provide for repurchase at the same or nearly the same price it was sold for. Whereas on a right of first refusal, that's somewhere down the road, and they're going to be marketing it to other buyers. So that's more of a competitive process. You're not going to really build in a price typically on a right of first refusal, unless you purchase an option at some point. So a repurchase right, if development benchmarks aren't met, that's something you might want to think about. And I do think it's of some value to have maybe some beefier provisions with regard to things like fencing and screening and storage of materials. For instance, if you're not going to go down the road of prescribing uses, saying these reuses are, if you don't want to get more restrictive than the zoning ordinance, which you could also do. Obviously, you could prohibit certain uses on this property. If you don't want it, you can do that, and that can ease some citizen concerns if you want to do that. But so you can do that. But if you don't want to do that, if you want to just let the rights under the zoning ordinance prevail as far as uses, you may want to think about things like storage of materials, screening, noise, fencing, lighting, things like that might go beyond the underlying zoning ordinance, that would give you some assurance down the road you're not going to put some sort of nuisance, company in there that's going to be doing things that technically can be allowed under zoning, but you don't want it done that way there.
Right.
And it could be for appearance sake, or it could be, for things like noise and lighting. So there are those kind of things. I would look at if you don't have it, ask Taylor maybe for the Floyd restrictions, because they go into that. So I think those kind of provisions can make a lot of sense and can help shape the future of the property to the extent you have a vision for it and want to try to do that. Otherwise, you're just the landowners, the purchasers are just operating under the zoning ordinance, which might be all you want to do, but you can go beyond that.
All right. The next question was in the permitted uses. I see they've got them spelled out here. My question would be, would it be an advantage to mention the uses permitted under M1? And that way, if something comes in that we want to permit, we can just do it with a text amendment instead of having to go back through the whole deed process.
You could, yeah. I mean, it's going to be whatever the zoning is always permitted. Again, unless you and that zoning can change, obviously, like you said.
Right.
EDA could initiate a change, the county could, or the purchaser or developer of the parcel could initiate it. So, you could reference that in the restrictions. And there's no harm in doing that. I don't know that you need to legally do it, but to the extent it provides some sort of guidance or certainty for the EDA and for prospects, you could start there if you don't want to go beyond there and designate actual uses. I understand you can't foresee everything that might come down the road.
Exactly.
So it's kind of tough.
Let me make a list, somebody come up with something different.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I'd sort of more err on the side of what you're doing on the permitted side.
Okay.
But if you do know there are things you don't want there, it's pretty easy on the prohibited side to say you don't want certain things.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Cole?
The only thing I'm thinking, what would be different about doing this than what we already done with the existing industrial park? As far as regulation, like we've done with RJ Smith and different ones that purchased it. Anything that we see and that we need to change or have more restrictions?
I don't think we've got any
Yeah, I
deed
prefer to.
restrictions much. I don't think we've got any deed restrictions much over there. I think we pretty well relied on zoning with the first one.
Yeah.
I think that's right. And you can always what the deed restrictions do is give you sort of a baseline set of rules, right?
Okay.
You can always per parcel, per transaction, negotiate a deal, right? So if it's and Neil can speak more as than me with his experience, but you can always have like a development agreement specific to a project that could even, go beyond or have additional provisions or performance benchmarks or things that go beyond what the covenants would do. So you always have that flexibility on each transaction. And really the covenants really just set a baseline or a framework for the expectations of generally what kind of industry or activity you're looking for.
Right.
I think screening
Yeah.
is something that I would say common sense, not some sort of $300,000 nursery plan.
Yeah.
Screening is good. The other thing we cannot forget is that we have to grant the water, sewer, and electrical stuff to ourselves, because that was missed at the current park. And remember, I had all kinds of issues. I had to go get right of ways from all the neighboring. We want to give ourselves the right of way when we develop it. So that the only thing I would add is I would really put, if we're going to, I like the idea of the repurchase, but that really needs to be specific, because you could have a person who comes in and approves it and then through lawyers tries to make us pay. Or like somebody, we would just want to be able to say the repurchase is really what you paid us for. Saying you could get a situation where somebody starts building, they're under a bond, they fail, they financially fail, bond company or somebody could come in and try to, I would just make that as clear as possible.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Just as Jeff had mentioned, in terms of the sales contract for the property, and it's often a couple of items that are often included as part of that. One is the type of development that would be occurring and some benchmarks for timing. The other often common is progress towards the development. In other words, a lot of times the sales contract will govern until, you just delay the closing until certain benchmarks or for permits and progress on the development have occurred. So that's a way that you can assure that the development goes forward. So there's opportunities in the actual sale of the property to assure the quality of development that you want.
Anyone else? And, let Mr. Gore's time, why don't we, take this under advisement? We'll decide what we want to include into it. I think we've pretty much come to a consensus that we like the Floyd County one, except for the font. I went crazy trying to read it. And we'd like to base ours on the Floyd County, and we'll give you a list of things we want to include. And you can work something up and you can bring it back to us. Does that sound reasonable?
That sounds great. Yeah, just let me know, and I'm sure Taylor will be in touch, and we can go from there. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yeah, I like the right to repurchase instead of the right to first refusal.
I think too, we got fortunate so far with, like all the people in the park and RJ doing such a large project. I think there is something to be said about just general, in common sense. We don't want people having to build, buildings like Class A office space or something, But we got fortunate where, he's doing the curbs, the blacktop, the gray. I mean, it looks good. We want to we develop a nice looking park where we don't have too many things open-ended and then we get something that looks terrible right along 360.
Yep. Also like the suggestions about the screenings, the inside and outside storage, the noise, of course, and the fencing and lighting. You'd be surprised at how many people put up lights and their neighbors complain about them. And I guess we're gonna have to go with a name of this thing too. Would it be ostentatious for us to say the Amelia Regional Business Park or something like that? Commerce Park?
That'd be a good starting point. Maybe if we can work something out with the Heartland Regional Authority and go to
Yep.
Virginia that's significant, maybe we can sell them the naming rights.
Oh. Okay. Anything else we want to consider? All right. Move on. Let's talk about demolition.
I've had a brief initial conversation about this with some staff, not everybody. It's going to rise. It's going to rise to the level that we're going to have to bid it out. We don't have the equipment and things that are necessary to do it in-house. So we're going to have to put something together
Okay.
to solicit help. I did talk to Jim Engel last week, and we talked about what's been going on. He's Richard Smith's point man here. We talked about what's going on and what might be going on, and he indicated that if there's a site development or demolition job, certainly they would be interested in participating. So there is we hear about labor shortages and contractors that can't get caught up, but I think this is something that we'll be able to do.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to get that done before we put the sign up.
One less thing to work around,
Yeah.
or 2 less things to work, 3 less things to work around.
Yeah. More like put lipstick on a pig, you know? Let's talk about the signage. You got the thing in the packet here proposed. 4x8. It's the last sheet of
So
packet.
we put one sign at the crossover or at,
I would think one sign could cross over. If
Okay.
somebody feels differently about that.
I think that'd be sufficient for the time being, yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you have any idea what time frame you can deliver the sign?
Yeah, I think from my, brief discussions with him would be relatively quickly, since it's not that, large, big a project.
Right.
If you want to delay it until after demolition, then we've got, plenty of time to do it,
Yeah, we can do that. Just,
whichever.
put it on his calendar so you know we're gonna get back to him.
Okay,
Now, that's building design and installation. Is that right? He gonna put the sign in place, that's part of the money.
I didn't hear you.
He will install the sign after he makes the sign.
Yes, that's including installation, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
All right. That brings us down to sales discussion. I think we had a discussion the other days. In the past, we just wanted to recoup our money. We didn't want to make it a money-making project. We have to go back and figure out how much money we've spent for all the studies and stuff. Of course, the demolition would go into that and get a per acre price for that.
One of the components of that discussion was to reach back out to the appraiser that did it for us the first time
Right.
and get a appraised value, which doesn't have anything to do with cost, but what is the difference in the market now that we've got the property secured plus rezone?
That's right.
So we'll have that information for everybody to talk about.
Yeah, one of the advantages of listing the property initially at market value is that if you sell the property less than market value, the differential can be used potentially as match money for other grants. In other words, for instance, if you have a the market value is $10,000 an acre and you sell it for $5,000 an acre, that differential of $5,000 for a 20-acre, parcel then gives you potential match for state grants and or tobacco commission and or, Go Virginia funding there. So that's the advantage of listing it at a market value, not necessarily what you would be willing to sell it for.
Give us some negotiating room anyway.
Yep.
Anybody else have any marketing discussion, ideas? Of course, Taylor could walk out of here today and somebody would come up to him and say, I understand you got some property for sale, and take the whole thing. Could happen. All right, anything else under the old and new business we need to discuss? Neil, we appreciate you being here today.
Good.
Everything
Thank you.
goes well for you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, county administrators report.
Yeah, I've already touched on a couple of things there. The contact with the initial appraiser to get an update on the value out there. That's going on. I met with Jim Engel from Richard Smith, very optimistic, very pleased with the way things are going at the current facility. Thought he was going to have occupants in all of his buildings probably by the end of the year. He's the market is treating him well, and of course they put together a nice project. They've got a good product out there that I think very appealing to the eye, and of course we know how well it's located and things, so things are going well there, and they're ready to talk about things that might come up in the future. And the last thing that I've got, and I guess Ashley and I had talked about bringing in Ilsa
Yep.
again to talk a little bit about messaging, because I think that's where it was once we had things going on. She was suggesting to us that we needed to work on the messaging and getting it out there. So hopefully we will have something to talk about it within the next month or so. And finally, the county seal has been upgraded with Kent and Kimberly down there at the Emergency Services Office. They're big on signage and different things. And the seal that we had didn't have enough definition to it, didn't have enough quality. So Kimberly took it upon herself to make it, I'm not so sure how many times better, but it's like 1,500 times sharper. So we've got some things that if anybody wants to put up a big banner up or something like that, it'll look much better than what we've got right now. So kudos to Kimberly for that one.
Yeah, I was pleased that we got the process we went through the purchase of the Richardson Road property on the website. But how many people read the website? I don't know how to get the message out. Maybe Ilsa can tell us how to get that. Yes,
So I actually spoke to Elsa on that because that's one point of the website, but right now, most of our presence is via the newspaper because of the generation that's located in Amelia. And then in order to, we need to be more active on our Facebook, because those are our two primary source right now. And then as well as our local community boards. So if we can work in conjunction with that and put the website address that directs them to our homepage,
right.
Everything can be localized down at the bottom of the EDA, which eventually Brady and I will be partnering to develop resources and everything
Okay.
for those links. But she really is harping on a more social media presence to grab a lot of the incoming generations and stuff like that. And that way we stay ahead of it instead of being reactive
Right.
to anything.
Oh, yeah.
That was a very sweet insult. I don't know if everybody picked up on it as well as I did. I think Ashley said that for the local population's generation,
I picked up on it.
newspaper readers. That's a very nice way of saying it. It's a lot of gray hair, right?
Especially since I had a birthday yesterday. Yeah. You got anything you want to add?
Think I'm glad the process is complete with the rezoning. I think, but I really do feel like it went through pretty well. I don't think that the community felt ramrodded,
Okay.
and that's always a concern when the local government is behind in action, is they can sometimes feel ramrodded.
Yeah.
We just bulldoze them over. And the reason I say that is because aside from the first meeting, there wasn't a lot of people in attendance in relation, and I think that the board members really made an effort to try to contact the neighboring community, and I think they seem to be pretty satisfied with the buffer
Right.
that was suggested. So I'm happy about that. I haven't got a lot of calls or nasty emails. We haven't had FOIA requests. Usually when something happens that the community's upset about, they start to try to pressure you or try to find and nitpick you, and we haven't had any of that. Knock on wood. So that's been nice. That's been a good thing. I'd say in terms of the price, something you always want to be careful about is the locality is, especially in this type of market, being that there's not a ton of industrial commercial properties, is when you sell something, you're setting a modern comp for that property. So you want to make sure that you're not selling something at a bargain and then that becomes the top for other land in the county, which reduces your property value, reduces your tax assessed value. So you want to make sure that you do sell it or list it or whatever, make sure it's known that this is the market rate, even if you take a reduced cost, reduced price, sorry, for it. So you guys are really setting the market. You've done a great job at the first one. I think you're setting it again for the future for industrial properties. So really all my thoughts on it.
Okay. Yeah, we could, once we get the sign up, and we can put that on our Facebook page, our website and all that stuff too.
And communication, I still believe in word of mouth, you know.
Me too.
I think word of mouth is a really good way to market. It's just to do positive word of mouth marketing, you have to get a consistent message in the hands of the right people. And then have those people be your ambassadors wherever they go on behalf of what's going on. And so, you know, social media is a very quick way to disseminate information to a lot of people. And I think that if you were able to use that, and also if you're able to coincide that with quality word of mouth marketing through key community members, like people in your churches and your local businesses, if you can get them on board with what you're doing and know that the county is really working every day to do what's best for behalf of the county as a whole, I think that's where your biggest impact is, your messaging.
Agree 100%.
Yeah.
All right, anything else to come before the authority today?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just as you move forward with the marketing, one of the things that I would encourage you to begin to think about is commercial real estate brokers and agents. There is a robust commercial real estate community right next door in the Richmond metropolitan area, and so contact with them just to note, make sure that they're available of that, and utilization of some of the commercial real estate marketing sites like CoStar and listing on those would be advantageous to you, I think, to consider as you move forward.
Thank you very much. If nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you.
Yeah, you get them kind of.